Imagine you're standing in a forest 10,000 years ago. A deer is 50 yards away. You're hungry. You have a sharp stone, a wooden spear, and one problem: the deer is much faster than you. If you get close, it runs. If you throw the spear, you might miss. So how could a human possibly hit an animal from a distance without getting close enough to be seen? The answer began with one of the strangest inventions in human history: the bow and arrow. Today, a bow looks almost ridiculously simple. A curved piece of wood, a string, and a long shaft with a sharp tip. But hidden inside that simple design is a brilliant idea. Instead of relying on the strength of your arm, what if you could store your strength inside the weapon and release it all at once? You can see the same principle with a rubber band. Pull it back and you create tension. Let go and that stored energy suddenly becomes motion. A bow does something remarkably similar. But here's where the mystery begins. We don't know who invented the first bow, and we probably never will. The earliest bows were made mostly from materials like wood, plant fibers, and animal materials. And those materials disappear over thousands of years. Stone survives, bone sometimes survives, but a wooden bow lying in a wet forest for thousands of years usually doesn't. So, the first bow may have existed long before the oldest bow we've ever discovered, and it probably wasn't invented in a single brilliant moment. There was no ancient inventor sitting down and saying, "Today, I will create the bow." Instead, it was probably thousands of tiny experiments. Someone discovered that certain branches could bend without breaking. Someone else realized that a cord could be stretched between two ends. Another person noticed something even more interesting. When the bent wood was released, it snapped forward with force, but turning that force into a useful weapon required another invention: the arrow. At first, an arrow may have been nothing more than a straight, sharpened stick, but a good arrow has to do something surprisingly difficult. It has to fly straight. It can't be too heavy. It can't be badly balanced. And if it spins or wobbles through the air, much of the shooter's energy is wasted. Ancient humans gradually learned how to shape shafts, attach stone or bone points, and eventually use feathers near the back to stabilize the arrow in flight. What looked like a simple stick was actually becoming a carefully engineered projectile. Now imagine the difference this created during a hunt. With a spear, you have to get close. Every step makes noise. Every movement gives the animal a chance to notice you. And if the animal is large, fast, or dangerous, getting close can be deadly. But with a bow, everything changes. You can stay behind trees. You can wait quietly. You can watch the animal without moving. And then, in a fraction of a second, the arrow is already flying. That meant humans were no longer limited by the distance their arms could throw a weapon. And this was a huge advantage. Think about throwing a baseball. No matter how strong you are, your body has limits. But if you use a tool that stores and releases your energy efficiently, the object can travel much farther and faster than your arm could manage on its own. The bow effectively turned the human body into a small energy source, and the weapon into an energy amplifier. But there was a hidden challenge. A powerful bow is useless if you can't hit your target. So ancient hunters had to become experts at something we often underestimate: repetition. Every shot taught them something. Too high, too low, too far left, too much force, not enough. Over hundreds or thousands of attempts, the brain begins to understand the relationship between distance, angle, force, and timing. The hunter wasn't simply holding a weapon anymore. They were learning to predict the behavior of a physical system, and archaeological evidence shows just how old this technology may be. Some of the earliest possible evidence for archery comes from southern Africa, where researchers have discovered ancient stone and bone points that may have been used with arrows. Clear surviving bows appear much later, including wooden bows from Europe dating back roughly 10,000 years. By that time, humans were already capable of producing surprisingly sophisticated equipment. But humans didn't stop there. Eventually, different cultures developed different bow designs. Some became longer and simpler. Others became shorter and more powerful. And then came one of the most impressive developments: composite bows. Instead of relying on one material, these bows could combine wood, horn, and animal sinew. Each material contributed different properties, allowing the weapon to become compact while still producing enormous power, and now we reach the most fascinating part of the story. The bow and arrow wasn't simply an invention for killing animals. It represented a completely different way of solving problems. Humans didn't suddenly become stronger. They learned how to take a weakness, the limited strength of the human body, and overcome it with design. That same pattern appears throughout human history. We build tools that extend our muscles. Wheels extend our ability to move. Levers multiply our strength. Machines transform small amounts of energy into enormous forces. Again and again, humans discovered that instead of changing ourselves, we could change the tools around us, and perhaps the first person who pulled a string backward and watched an arrow disappear into the distance had no idea what they had started. They weren't thinking about engineering. They weren't thinking about history. They were probably thinking about food, survival, and making it through another day. But that simple movement, pulling something back before releasing it, changed the distance between humans and their targets forever. We may never know the name of the person who invented the first bow. We may never know where they lived, what they looked like, or what they felt when their first arrow flew. But somewhere in the deep past, one human being looked at a piece of wood, a piece of cord, and a sharpened stick, and discovered that you didn't have to be stronger than the world around you. You just had to learn how to store its power and release it at the right moment.